What's up, guys? So today on the podcast, we have Pake McNally. Pake is a guy. So he's interesting. So he's a jiu-jitsu black belt, as we'll get into, and he is a blacksmith, and he makes maces. He makes all this metal um, equipment, right? All these different fabricated pieces of metal. And so he contacted us a while ago about possibly, being a part of the podcast as a sponsor. And I said, of course, we'll let us see your product first. And so he sent us some maces. And so Eugene and I have been playing around with their maces. I banged them around and made sure it's not going to break on anyone. And they're solid pieces of equipment. And so we're going to talk to him today on the podcast. It's fun. It's really interesting. He did some really cool jobs in my mind. Again, this is just me before, like, he's doing what he's doing now. He did a pretty cool job. I think it's interesting to listen to, but we'll talk to him about some of the careers that he's done and in jiu-jitsu training, as well as the whole thing about being a blacksmith. And so we'll be talking about that today on the podcast with him. And again, hopefully you guys enjoy this. With his company, it's Become Stronger Industries. The website is become-stronger.com. That's a tough one to get into. Become Stronger. That's like, I don't even know what the website is, but I imagine it's like some big business or something, right?
Sure.
But become-stronger.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu. So listen to the podcast. But if you're interested in using different odd object type implements like I am, because I do like doing stuff like that, to develop a different type of strength than just like the traditional weightlifting strength, then you can check him out at his website. And again, the promo code is Jiu-Jitsu. You'll save 10% off on any of the products that he has available on the website. And he also does custom stuff. So if there's something that's not there that you were maybe interested in, you can contact him. Also, thanks to our sponsor, Charlotte's Web. Charlotte's Web is a CBD company. They're one of the premier CBD companies out there. They make a really high-end product. It's scrutinized on a very high level, especially for CBD, because of the fact that CBD is unregulated and, it can basically be whatever. You don't know what's going on in there. And that's something that after going to their farms and talking to their, essentially all their scientist people, I don't know what else to call that. I'm a freaking caveman, like I don't know what to call them. They're scientists, I guess they are.
Yes.
And what they've done in talking about the plants and everything that they've developed and the processes that they go through and how they actually check it and go through the process of making sure that it's pure and that it's not going to be it's going to be a product that, basically, even if it was regulated, there would be no change on their part. Let's say it that way, because they're pushing for regulation so that it'll clean up the industry. But that's another conversation for another time. But if you'd like to check out any of their products, if you're interested in CBD and you'd like to give it a go, you can go to their website at charlottesweb.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu. You'll save 15% on the order. And again, it's a great product. I'm a big fan of it. I use it every single night. It's a part of my sleep regimen and has been for several years. And I notice a difference when I don't have it in there versus when I do. So keep that in mind. Also, thanks to our sponsor, Epic Roll. EpicRollBJJ.com is the website. Matt has been one of our sponsors for a long time now, and he makes a lot of excellent jiu-jitsu gear, both t-shirts and shorts and just kind of stuff you can wear, as well as rash guards and fight shorts and things like that. And we're currently working on a set of rash guard and shorts from him. I've been wearing them. Again, this is just my thing. Like, there may be no difference than anything else, but I have to do it. I've been wearing his rash guard and shorts that he made as a prototype. We're making a couple of different adjustments on the logo, and then we're going to get them ready for you guys. Should be out in about a month or so. So keep your eyes and ears open for that stuff if you're interested in that. I know a lot of people that were, when we had the custom gi recently, like this past year, they were like, "Come on, Chewy, like let's do some rash guards." Like, I'm a no-gi guy, And so if you guys are interested in that, you can check that out coming up here soon. But in the meantime, if you want to check out some of his shirts and his gear, I'm a big fan of all of his designs. Besides like my own stuff that I wear, which is kind of like my uniform, I probably wear his jiu-jitsu shirts the most, because I genuinely like them, So again, you can go to epicrollbjj.com, promo code is Jiu-Jitsu, save 15% on the order, and you can get yourself some gear or some apparel. And also, guys, if you are interested, if you think it would be a good idea to have a game plan for your jiu-jitsu, and if you would like some tips on how to drill your jiu-jitsu, whether you have open mat time, whether you're a coach, or whether you're someone that has absolutely no ability to dictate what goes on in your gym, right? I have 2 free ebooks that I'll give you if you go to my website, jujitsu.net/join. If you join the True Crew email list, where I send out a daily email, usually Monday through Friday, sometimes on the weekends, you'll get 2 free ebooks. One will talk about, just like I said, about how to develop a jiu-jitsu game plan. Essentially, we'd be writing it out. It's a thought exercise to sort of see what sort of moves and positions you have. I show you the game plan that I have, or that I had. Mine now, I could probably do like a 2.0 version, because my game plan now is about the same. Few differences, but about the same. And then you can then follow my lead and you can make your own. And then the ebook that goes over drilling is more about, 7 to 8 strategies for drilling that you can use to implement. And the book goes through the idea of varying the intensity, just like within weightlifting, where we vary the intensity from adding more weight, right? Well, when we're trying to learn a technique, we need to vary the intensity from drilling it at a very passive state to then the most intense, which is rolling against someone of similar skill level and hitting it, right? And how to kind of go through the phases of that to work a technique into a higher level of skill so that you can use it. So again, if you guys want to get those, you can go to jujitsu.net/join, and you can get the free ebooks by joining the Chew Crew list. And last, but certainly not least, if you guys would like to support the podcast and get access to premium content, you can go to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And again, it's inexpensive. I don't want to say cheap, because it's not cheap, but it's inexpensive. Monthly membership that costs you not much at all. I mean, you probably spend more money on, if you buy like two cups of coffee at like a coffee place, you're paid for. I mean, whatever. But again, it's got years of content that we have with each guest. We do a little snippet from it. So every guest that you've had on the podcast, or we've had on the podcast, is in there. There's also some podcasts that we've never released that are just me and Eugene talking about different ideas, Q&As, also some workout stuff and all that stuff. Just a ton of different content that you can access by going to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And guys, with that said, let's jump into the podcast today with Pake. Talk about his jiu-jitsu, some of his interesting careers that he's been in, and I hope you guys enjoy this one.
Pake, where are you located?
So I'm Medicine Lodge, Kansas.
Medicine Lodge.
Yeah, way west of, about 2 hours west of Wichita. Just down southwest Kansas, along the Oklahoma state line. So,
is it like just flatness out there?
No, where I live, it's awesome, man. So I live it's called the Gypsum Hills, the Red Hills. And yeah, it's just like, it reminds you of like the desert Southwest, that kind of topography, especially when you go on a little further west. Pretty arid. There is a lot of farming and whatnot, but like where I live, it's pretty awesome. I live down in the river bottom, but surrounded by hills, So
where are you from originally?
I grew up around here. I grew up. I went to high school here in town, and then we moved around the county. But my family's from this area, so yep.
Did you always imagine, like, did you move elsewhere, like, throughout your time?
Yeah. No, dude, I never thought I'd freaking come back. Yeah, no, I moved out to Colorado right after I graduated high school, and did some work out there. And I was gone for about 12 years. Well, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, 12 years. Yeah. And then, long story short, I had the chance to take over a blacksmith shop in my hometown. Mm-hmm. And you don't get a chance like that very often. So I quit. I was a Wildland Firefighter, and I thought I was going to make that the career. But then my blacksmithing mentor, offered me the chance to take over a shop. And so I did, moved home, and then I met a girl.
Yeah.
And I got married. And here we are.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Yeah. The women, they ground us in a good way. It's not a bad thing. It's like, I feel like, guys are all over the place, and then like, we just are. I mean, like, if we don't have like not all guys, but I feel like a lot of guys, right? We're all over the place. And then when we find like a woman Like they kind of like ground us and sort of
Yep.
bring us down. Like they get you to settle down, so to speak, right?
Yep.
Like we have the term. It's like it gets us to settle down and like, all right, we're gonna get a house and we're gonna do this and that, whatever, and build a life.
Yep.
So you're a blacksmith, and then you did wildland firefighting. Those are two like things that you don't hear. We'll talk about the blacksmith stuff because that stuff obviously is what you're doing now. But how did you get into the firefighting thing? I have a student that left to do that.
Nice.
How'd you get into that, and what was that like?
So when I left for Colorado, I worked for at the time it was called the Southwest Youth Corps, and we would build and maintain hiking trails out on federal land, like national forests and whatnot. We did a lot of work on the Continental Divide Trail there in southern Colorado, and they put me through it. They put us all through a class, like the intro to wildland firefighting, essentially. And then I met a lady who worked for the state, and her husband was an engine captain on a little Type 6 brush rig for the Forest Service, and she told him to hire me, essentially, and that's how I got into it. So I would fight seasonal, so 6 months on, 6 months off. So it was, for a young bachelor, like the perfect life.
Yeah.
So I would fight fire for 6 months and not train jiu-jitsu at all, but I'd get like really, really strong, mountain man strength.
Yeah.
And then I would go back to Manhattan, Kansas, to Combative Sports Center and get my ass kicked. But I looked really strong doing it. So
yeah. So I'm curious, like when the fires were blazing, let's say a fire's going, like what does a day like an average day look like as you're going through that, like when you're in the middle of that? Because those fires, they don't just go away. It's not like one day, all right, it's like this weeks of like fighting that thing.
Yep.
What does an average day look like?
So when the cruise that I was on, we'd go out, you do 14-day rolls, and then you could either R&R for a couple of days and then get back on the fire, or they'd send you home. It just depends on the fire situation. But like, it was exciting in a way, but it's just a lot of hard work. Like, it's the hardest physical job I've ever had in my life. And like, I grew up ranching and like doing what I thought was hard, and then you're digging fire line. So you've got like your fire pack on that weighs between 20 and 35 pounds, depending on what you're carrying, what your job is. You're carrying that all day, like, and you're either running a chainsaw or you're running a hand tool, just digging fire line. It's just brutal. Like, it's just hard manual labor, and it's awesome. But I kind of got to the point where I had done it for 6 seasons and had a lot of fun doing it. I kind of had a boss that I didn't get along with, and I had a couple of close calls, and I decided that like getting killed by a tree or a rock to save more trees and rocks was just, that's not how I wanted to go. So when the opportunity came to take over the blacksmith shop, I jumped at it. But it made a man out of me for sure. Like, it was badass. Got to travel. I was relatively not sheltered growing up, but I didn't have that much opportunity to travel, I was 21 my first time flying, and that was like on our way to Alaska to go fight fire for about a month. And ever since then I've got to travel all over the world doing other stuff. But just expands your world, so, and you see how tough you are too.
Yeah. So essentially you said fire line, you dig around a certain area to stop the fire, to contain the fire, essentially. So it's very different than what people think of. Like, you're not using water or anything like that. You're kind of, I guess sometimes maybe you'll use, like, do you have planes drop stuff?
We'd have like helicopters that we'd be working with and whatnot, that would come in and put water. But then you've still got to, like, that doesn't put the fire out. Like, you've got to go in there and mop up. So you're you're knocking all the hot spots out. So you're digging, because the fire will follow the root system of trees. So you're digging and cutting down trees that are in your way to try to contain the fire. And it was good stuff, but I've got a lot of friends that are still doing it. My sister actually married my old boss, one of my old bosses.
Not the one you disliked, right?
Do what?
Not the one you disliked, right?
No.
Okay, good.
You're not gonna say it right now.
No, yeah, I guess he would be like, oh, no, he's great. I love him.
Hey, Pake. So, man, I wanna know, like, you always hear people have like these like life altering events, like maybe a close call. Can you talk about like having a close call? Like, what did it make you do, like internally, mentally? What was your process to like, I want to move on and do something else?
So yeah, we were out in Oregon, and I had a tree come down. Like, I saw it, and it was burning out from under. Like, the roots were burning out, and I knew it, and I was complacent, and like, it about got me. You know, with it, if I would have been another foot over, like, it would have wrecked me. Like, I might not have killed me, but it damn sure could have. And then, like, so you got stuff like that. Like, I knew that I wasn't in like a good mental space. I'd had some personal shit going on. Like, I was kind of in a toxic relationship, and that's never good when you're in. My head wasn't in it, you know. So that didn't help. It was my own fault. Like, I should have been present during those moments to take care of my guys and myself. But yeah, just some situations like that through the years of doing it. Like, every year I'd have a close call, some closer than others, or you'd have like a friend that would almost get it, you know, like, it's just. And then yeah, like, there were some tragedies in the wildland world, like when the hotshot crew, Granite Mountain, when they got caught and all of them got killed on that fire. Like, just a horrible thing. It makes you realize you're not Superman, you know. Like, this can happen to anyone, because those men were badass, and they still got in the wrong position, the wrong situation, and they all died. Like, it's not a good thing. So
did you work with the guys, like the same guys, a lot?
Yeah. So I was on, it depended on the season. Usually I was on the same national forest working on a fire engine, and there was 3 fire engines on that forest, and we'd all work together, and like, you build a good like brotherhood. And there's women out there that do it too that are phenomenal. And yeah, you get to know each other really well, because you know, you don't shower for 14 days or anything like that.
Well, yeah, because it's one of those things where anytime I feel like when I listen to someone speak about it or read about it or experience anything where you're dealing with like people, a group of people together for at least some prolonged period of time dealing with crazy stuff.
Yep.
You know, it has a way of kind of cutting through any differences that you have. It has a way of bonding you with people a lot of times, usually. Not always, but a lot of times. So I was curious.
Yeah.
So how long have you been blacksmithing?
So
because you got the shop, so I'm sure you weren't just like, oh, I've never done this before, but hey, you got one for sale, I'll take it.
Yeah. I started that in like 2013. I started, but like I've always played with metal, and I was considered myself like a found object metal artist. So like, I would take junk that I found and turn it into something else. Had pretty good luck with that, actually, like going to art shows and selling it. And then I wanted to get into blacksmithing, and the little town that I'm from, the old blacksmith was still alive, and Tom Smith, and he was a blacksmith on a Navy repair boat in World War II, and before Pearl Harbor, he was a blacksmith as well. And he's just a badass, grumpy old man, and Golden Gloves boxer, all that, just cool. He taught me like from his couch, because he was too beat up and crippled to really get to a shop anymore. And his shop was just down the road, like a block away from his house. So he let me get after it in his shop. And that lasted until I enlisted in the Army. I got married, enlisted in the Army as a reservist, so I could get health insurance for my family, do the responsible thing, you know. And long story short, after he passed away, me and his family kind of got into it, and they decided they didn't want me in the shop anymore. So this is what it is. Yeah.
What was it like, you know, what was your draw to like metalwork and blacksmithing and because that's not very common. You know, not a lot of things are handmade anymore. Everything's so machine made. Like, what was your draw to, and how did you realize that you're actually pretty talented with working with metal?
I just enjoyed doing it. Like my draw was like the artistry of it, like what you can, being able to take a hunk of iron and turn it into something that, like, change it and form it how you want to. Like, that control is just amazing, and it's not complicated. It's just like jiu-jitsu. It's full of blacksmithing is just a bunch of simple techniques, and if you're able to put all those techniques together in the right way, like, you can come up with some really neat stuff. And that, I think that was it right there. And when I first got started, I was horrible, you know, just like with jiu-jitsu, but it was the challenge and I enjoyed doing it. And I just kept at it. Like, I've got to stay busy. Like, and I like doing stuff with my hands. And if I get in my own head too much, like, I just go down, like, it's just not good for me. I need to stay busy, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good to have. I think that's good for all of us. I forgot what we were talking about, but the idea of like men without purpose, you know, and I'm sure it's this way for females as well. But I'm just a guy, so it's how I view everything, right, from a male's perspective. But but like, you know, you look at the amount of like drug use, you know, suicides, all sorts of awful behavior from men, right? You know, in society, and you're like, I feel like a part of it is like so many people don't have purpose.
Yep.
They don't have something they're chasing after. And I think that's like a lot of times people come into things like, for instance, fighting. You know, you've seen this plenty of times where, you know, there's been plenty of examples of guys who were living a terrible life. And then all of a sudden you're doing terrible stuff. And then they would get into fighting.
Yep.
And then it was instantly, they had this thing that they could do and they had purpose, and they could see they would get feedback instantly about whether or not they're progressing. You know, it's essentially like a game. And, you know, even like games, you see so many young men get addicted to video games. You know, you have this thing where you can instantly see, I'm making progression. I have a purpose. I'm doing this thing. And I feel like so many people lack that. So when you say keeping busy, I more think of it as like, it just feels good to have a purpose. Like, I'm doing something, I'm working towards something, I'm building something, rather than just kind of being complacent to wherever you're at.
Yep. Yeah. Before, like, jiu-jitsu and all that stuff, I was just a hot mess, like a lot of guys were before they discover it, you know, drinking too much, way too much, way too much, and just kind of turning into a piece of shit. But I didn't have a mission, you know, like, I had nothing to do after going to college classes and not caring at all about it. And then I found jiu-jitsu, and it just changed everything. So,
yeah. When did you start training?
I was 20. So I just discovered, like, they ran an ad in the paper, Combative Sports Center, and all my instructors, they had an ad in the paper, and something about it just caught my eye. And it was a block from my house, and I didn't have a driver's license at the time. None of us did in my house of 6 guys. We had all gotten our driver's licenses taken away by the law. So
birds of a feather.
And we all grew up together too. Like, we were all from the same little high school. Like, I'm still good friends with all of them, but my goodness, like, we did some dumb shit. But yeah, I just went and started training, and I was skinny fat, so I went to Colorado, did that, and was just like, I'm going to go to college to get a degree. And I had some really bad, like, I lost my dad and then 2 really close friends in the period of like 13 months, like, in between all that. So I was just completely wrecked mentally, like, just destroyed. And then I found jiu-jitsu, and it started, like, I was still a shit show, but it started dragging me out of that hole. You know, I started surrounding myself with men that were that I wanted to emulate, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
I was just happy to be there. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's again, you found a different type of outlet, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like drinking, you know, you're drinking, get in trouble, and then
Yeah.
you found like, and something about jujitsu is like, if you like learning and if you
Yep.
like challenging yourself, doing difficult things, like it does pique that interest in you. And then after a while, you just keep kind of like, this is sometimes miserable. Like, why do I keep coming back? But there's a
Yes.
pull there to come back, right?
Yep.
It's a weird thing. Like, what did it do for you as far as like getting you out of that kind of slump? But like physically, what did you feel, and how did you like? How were you attracted to jujitsu?
It was like that mental challenge, like just getting your ass kicked every day. Like I didn't like that. I liked that feeling, but I didn't like that feeling. Like I wanted to get to the point where I was the one like
Yeah.
kicking ass, and I was getting destroyed by like people who I thought, you know, like little guys or like older like guys with beer bellies that were just wiping the floor with me, like completely destroying me. And I wanted to be that guy, you know. I wanted to, and then so we had there's a bunch of like soldiers and whatnot that would come to the gym and train from Fort Riley, the first infantry divisions over there. So just being surrounded by a bunch of alphas that had been in the shit, you know, that were all either deploying or coming back for deployments, and the way they carried themselves, like I wanted that. I wanted that confidence. I wanted that. And, you know, I don't know. Like I've never felt like worthy of being in that group of men, you know, like always feel like I'm trying to measure up, but I think you always are when you find like a good peer group. You always feel like you're the one that's like, do I really belong here? You know? So
well, it's a natural thing, I think, with like our tribal roots, where you know we're within a tribe and we're trying to prove ourselves useful to the rest of the tribe, right? Like, you know, I'm good too. I'm not a, like you said, I'm not a complete shit show. I'm good at stuff, and I belong here with the rest of you guys. Things like that. I think that naturally happens, and I think this is why like it's really important to choose your tribe consciously, because you will begin to mold yourself around them, right? So if you put yourself into a group of people that are doing bad stuff, you're naturally going to be like, well, they're doing this, and you're going to naturally fit in if you stick around them, because that's your tribe. You're going to want to fit in. So if they're out doing some bad stuff, I was having a conversation with a young guy about this the other day, to one of the teenagers at the gym. We were just like shooting shit at the end of class while he was waiting for his parents to come up, and he was talking about like he said this road where like he's got friends that are like selling drugs and stuff like that, and he really likes his buddy, but like he's like, I don't want to go that way. He's got like a job that he's, you know, McDonald's, making some money, working for his car and stuff. And I was telling him, I was like, dude, choose your path wisely, because you know you'll start to mold yourself around those people. So that only makes sense that you found a new tribe, and you found all these dudes doing stuff, and now you're trying to mold yourself into being worthy of that tribe, right? Which again, in your case, it was a good group to be molded around.
Yeah. Without finding jujitsu, I don't know where I'd be, but I don't know. It might not be any worse, but it'd be different, and I wouldn't change anything I've done, you know? So
I think a fun thing about jiu-jitsu as well, you know, besides the camaraderie and the group that you're around, is getting better. Like, right. Like actually the addictive thing about it is like taking a technique and learning it, and then starting to implement it, and actually being able to use it against somebody that's resisting. I think that for me, because I did a little bit of Taekwondo, you know, as a young kid, but like I never could apply it to anything. I couldn't go kicking somebody in the head, you know, but in jiu-jitsu, you can actually apply your movement and your technique. And I think to me, I was like, that was an addictive thing that I was able to learn and improve actually and get better. And then, you know, you compete and you maybe win a little bit, you lose a little bit, but you still get better. And I think that was a really addictive thing for jiu-jitsu for me. I don't know about you.
No, for sure. Like I wasn't an athlete in high school. You know, I was like a shop kid and like a ranch kid. So like I worked and drank beer and chased girls and drove fast cars, like that's what me and my friends did. And so
You're
I,
in like a country western song.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So like I didn't know how strong I could be until I found jujitsu. And then like jujitsu made me tough enough to go like become a wildland firefighter and do that, and then doing that made me tough enough. Like, well, if I can get through this stuff, like I can go do a little bit of MMA. Like that's 3 3-minute rounds. Like, okie dokie, I'll go get punched in the face for that. It's not 24 hours of digging fire line. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it just really helped me kind of like figure out what I could do, and yeah, it's awesome. So.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing when you start to like test your boundaries. Mm-hmm. I was again in conversation from one of our coaches I was talking to the other day. Like, I think a lot of times when we push ourselves into unknown territory, you can mentally, like I've heard people talk about affirmations and stuff, and I think affirmations are fine, but actions are so much more powerful because you're giving yourself evidence. It's like when you throw yourself into, say, like, okay, you do jiu-jitsu. Maybe you don't think you can do this, whatever, and all of a sudden you get better at it. Mm-hmm. Wow, I got better at it. And then it's like, okay, what else can I do? And then you do that and you're like, man, I did good at that too, because I used the same formula from getting good at jiu-jitsu and I put that same effort towards this. What else can I do? And then before you know it, you realize the things that you can accomplish with that mindset. And I think it's a powerful thing, and I think that whether you get it from jiu-jitsu or something else, anything where you're having that delayed gratification, that, nose to the grind, or that sort of like long-term skill acquisition, long-term sort of goal that you have. Anytime you do something in that kind of space, I feel like it's transformative to your character, because then you have that, like, you've unlocked a door, and then you can take that same mindset towards a million other things.
Yep. And it's addictive, like now that I have a family, like I try not to like find, what's the next thing? What's the next challenge? Mm-hmm. And that's tough. Like, I've tried to slow it down a little bit, but I don't know. I haven't really been able to. So.
Well, I mean, I think you maybe, because you're taking on a new challenge, like with the business stuff, right?
Yep.
So
for sure.
You start to like, okay, well, instead of going off on wild adventures, so to speak, I've got a family, got roots here. So maybe I've got to find an adventure that allows me then to serve them as well.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe that's something that, especially as we get older and we have, wives and kids and whatever, you start to think, I probably need to make sure that my goals are in alignment with the rest of this stuff, not something that's taking away from it.
Yep. And I have a hard time with that. I'm getting better at it, but like, I'm a reservist in the Army, so like I get some cool opportunities to go do some pretty neat stuff. And it's always challenging stuff. So I have to train up for them for the different schools I get to go to. And like, I'm good at that kind of shit, training up for like something hard and rigorous. I'm really good at it. Like that comes natural to me. The family stuff and like, and that dynamic, I have to work a lot harder at.
Sure.
So it's interesting. But my wife also, like, she'll let me go do it, but she'll reel my ass right back in when I start, like, when I get too far out there,
Yeah.
So it's good.
It's a good partner to have, because they keep you grounded. You're getting both. My wife as well, like, kind of, I've been training jiu-jitsu since we've met. Like, before her and I met, I was training, and she always knew it was a part of what I did.
Yeah.
It was kind of just, I was like I think I had just gotten my blue belt or something when we got together. And like, so she already, I kind of already knew I was going to keep going.
Yeah.
Like, I just didn't see any reason to quit. And so I think it was always like, but it's push pull, because sometimes, man, I want to go train every night, but it's not, you have to take care of shit at home, and you have to, be there. And sometimes, like, I'll come home from jiu-jitsu and I'm talking to her about jiu-jitsu and what happened, and she's like, dude, just like, you got to be here now. Like, you can't, I don't care about what happened at jiu-jitsu so much as like, that's your time. I get it. But like, you got to, and that's hard part for me, because sometimes jiu-jitsu carries over into other areas, and that can be a good thing in some ways, because of, you build some resiliency and some, some tough work ethic, but also you can sometimes be all that consumes your mind.
Yeah.
It's tough. But I wanted to know, like, so when you started, like, what was your call or your reason for starting your business?
So I just gotten back home from basic training, and I no longer had the blacksmith shop. And a couple of years prior to that, like Onnit was just coming out with their maces and whatnot, and I was doing metal work, and a friend of mine asked me if I could build him one, and like that never left my head. Like I wasn't always thinking about it, but I never forgot about it. And I got home and just like, well, shit, now what am I going to do? Because I didn't have hardly any tools. I didn't have I was down to the bare basics that I started with. So I just went into the shop and started designing and started building and came up with a design. And then like the next day had an Instagram page and like started marketing them. Like I probably went about it a little too fast, but like I felt I was kind of in a desperate situation too, because I didn't want to work for anybody else. Like I quit Wildland Firefighting to be my own boss, and that's what I wanted to do. So I just started getting after it, and I've been very fortunate. And yeah, it's just kind of crazy how it's grown. Like I started that been doing this since the spring of 2017.
Okay.
So, yep.
And then what product? So you make maces, and then like, what do you like about the maces? Like, so I imagine that do you play around with them much?
Yeah, no. So I like them because, so I got into working out with kettlebells years ago. Like back I started working out with them in like 2006, and I just liked the way they made me feel. Like I would train jiu-jitsu, and I would try to like go to the gym and hit the weights, but like doing heavy deadlifts and heavy squats, like I just didn't. It was wrecking my body, and I was probably doing it wrong anyway, But the kettlebells just made me feel better. And it's the same with the maces. It's just like anything. It's just a tool. Like there's nothing magic about them. But like from years of digging fire line and years of like people yanking on me, like with the gi on and all that stuff, like kind of became hunched over, and I had like started having shoulder problems and just really tight, like most of us jiu-jitsu guys are. And I started working out with them, and it just opened me up. Like I feel like I stand taller, I have better posture. I'm not in as much pain. Like other parts of my body hurt, but not my shoulders, and not the middle of my my spine, the middle of my back. Like just, I'm not saying it fixed everything, but it sure helped, and so yeah, they're just tools, but I love them. So
well, and I think it's something interesting that you can mix up, because then you can use the weight in a much more mobile fashion.
Yep.
So like typically if you're doing like a heavy barbell or something, there's nothing wrong with them. I love barbells. I love barbells, but you've got that limited range. Whereas, when you have things like a kettlebell or maces and things like that, they're designed to be flung around a little bit. And they can make for some interesting workouts.
Yep.
And also, like you said, they can hit the muscles a little bit differently rather than doing a very like strict range of motion, which can be fine in some cases. But when you're talking about people with really like jiu-jitsu people with really overly developed pec minors, biceps, pec muscles, and then just constantly doing this, then you get them in there and they're doing bench press and curls. You're like, you're making this problem so much worse.
yeah absolutely. So I just I don't know, like it's just, they're just fun to build, and like I customize them and for different people, and I love that personalized aspect with the stuff that I make. Like
I'm looking on your website, by the way. I don't want you to think I'm like texting.
No,
I'm looking at all the stuff you sell, because I'd be like, whatever, Pake. I'm like, here talking. I'm listening to you, but I'm also taking a look at all the different products that you sell on there, just because I think it's neat.
I think so. I started playing around. You sent us a couple of maces and stuff, and I was playing around with it, and it's not something I've used a ton before, but like the unique aspect of it is like there's a lot, and I think I use like the 10-pound mace, which is insanely difficult actually, because I'm not conditioned to do it.
No.
And the things like kettlebells and the things like the maces, that's a dynamic movement through like a range of motion. So you're actually forcing your muscles and your shoulders to move in this rotational component, but you're also stabilizing there. And so like, it's a great way to strengthen, but also really to like activate the muscles and loosen things up.
Yeah.
It would be hard to do it like in a group setting. Obviously, you don't want to be nailing each other in the head or nail your partner. But like, so I was using it, and what I noticed was like it definitely like activates muscles in different ranges of motion.
Yep.
And it's good as like an adjunct, or as like something like if you are using barbells and dumbbells and stuff, it's a good way to incorporate, because it just gets you a little bit. I think it kind of gets certain corners or certain areas that maybe you will miss with some like regular like strengthening. So I think it's a good adjunct for sure. Like I think you should incorporate into your strengthening program. This is for me, this is what I was just messing with it. And that's kind of what I've noticed. I was definitely more loose. So if you can load your joints in a complete range of motion, it's actually more beneficial that way than just like stretching or doing that kind of stuff. So my nerd brain, my nerd jiu-jitsu or physical therapy brain always kind of like, how can this work? Like, how is it beneficial and why? You know, like, so that's kind of what I think.
Well, and that's what we talked about in regards to like when I was doing like, say, for instance, when I was doing the squats with a really slow eccentric and slow concentric, where I was slowing the squat down really slow. You were saying that basically I'm loaded and I'm basically strengthening in all these different ranges of motion. And then if you think about that, then you take like a weight that can be moved around in lots of ranges of motion, then you're going to be able to load that and strengthen it throughout the whole
and you have
area.
to stabilize it, really,
right?
Like it's really hard to do that. Like when you're taking that mace and you have to bring it across and then around, like you're like really weak in certain planes. I mean, obviously the mace starts to go, the weight of it carries it, but like you find like, man, there's some spots that like, so think of this, if my arm's like this and I'm in jiu-jitsu and somebody's taking my arm and I'm not strong here, I can't stabilize or control the movement at all, like I'm going to get injured. So I think like you're actually simulating some of these external rotations and things like that with your arm back here even. So I think it's got definitely even just as a warm-up, like a couple minutes on it before you go and start training, I think is really helpful.
And then just knowing when to like relax your shoulders and upper body as you're doing those swings too. Like if I'm really tense here, this is going to hurt. But if I relax and let the weight do its thing to my frame, like it's going to feel a lot better, you know, like just, I don't know, kind of like kettlebell swings. You're not tense all the way through as you're bringing it up. You're letting that weight carry and letting the momentum help you. So it just takes practice, you know. Like it's taken me a long time to get good at it. So
you're working sequencing and timing too. Like you're turning certain muscles on or engaging them and kind of letting the other ones relax. And if you don't do that properly, you're gonna move that mace in a plane that it's not supposed to move, and you'll hit yourself.
Yes, you
and
will.
I did that. Hit myself in the shoulder. I was like, shit. Yeah, but I've liked playing. And here's the other thing: like you've used them for like tires, right? Like use them to hit tires with. How did you know? Like, did you discover that? Like, did you go like build one and then just start beating it on stuff and figuring that? How did you figure that out? Because that usually requires like another tool.
Yeah. So you know, when I was training up for like MMA fights and all that stuff, we'd work out like madmen. None of us knew what we were doing, but like
just go hard.
Just go hard. Who cares? All the time. And so of course that involves a sledgehammer and like a big tire.
Yeah, just whacking it.
Yeah, and I knew like not a lot, but some of the bigger like mace companies, they don't really want you to use it on a tire. And I wanted to build something to where you could use it on a tire and you could even miss the tire completely and smack your concrete floor and it wouldn't hurt the mace, you know? So I designed it to be able to take a beating and yeah, they're pretty bomb proof. Yeah. And just hitting something as hard as you can is really fun sometimes. Like I don't do it as much as I used to, but like just working on those slams and whatnot, like those tire slams is just awesome. You know, just powerful feeling.
I wonder when that started, because I remember like in the mid 2000s, like, you know, you'd get those like UFC, like behind the scenes. It's like, you know, like back when like guys like Penn and Shirk and all those guys were fighting. They
Yep.
started that.
Yeah.
And, you know, you would see these random things. I remember and not to say that they aren't effective things, but you saw the one with the tires and the sledgehammers, just bang, bang, hit the tire, you know, and then every gym afterwards in MMA, like they were doing it just ad nauseum, just like, what do we need to do? Want to go to do some more drilling and technique? No, screw it, let's hit tires.
Yes.
Actually had some guys do that once. Then, you know, there was that one, and then there was the snorkel, or not the snorkels, and then the gas masks. Then that was a big deal. Like you saw guys run around like doing training in gas masks. I remember one guy, they had them like they painted the gas mask black out and they spun him around in circles and got him real dizzy. And then they had him shadow boxing. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, I mean, it's like, I'm like, they're like, we're simulating. If you like, what are we simulating? Are you that the lights went out in the event and he's like really dizzy? Like, what's going on? Remember, they would even do that with Fedor. They had him in the
maybe getting rocked, like maybe if you're getting like if you get your equilibrium messed up or you can't see, maybe you get eye poke.
Maybe.
Don't you remember Bloodsport where like he sprayed this? What if you're the Kumite and somebody throws stuff in your eye and you can't see?
Best training video ever though was Fedor and like all the Red Devil dudes back in the day were all like training in a playground. They were like,
I've never seen this.
They were spinning. You haven't seen this?
No.
Oh yeah, they were spinning around. Like he was doing the spinning around, and then he'd shadow box. So I guess why he's dizzy.
Like a merry-go, like a.
Well, then they were just spinning around, but in the background you see like the jungle gyms and stuff. But like then it was like the best dudes in the world, like just out there, you know.
And you can't mess them. It's like, you know, remember that photo of Khabib in the tub with all the other dudes? They're all like hugging and stuff, and like you're like. You know, you can laugh at them a little bit, but like those are some bad dudes right there. They're pretty tough.
I mean, a lot of cultures do that where they have like all the guys jump in the sauna and they're all naked.
Yeah,
you know, whatever.
You know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
What was it like? I want to ask you about MMA. So do you have a couple of fights? Like how much?
I went 3-1, just amateur. Like I fought at 170, so I walked around at 175, and I did it because I wanted to see if jiu-jitsu worked. You know, like I wanted to see if my jiu-jitsu worked, and it did. I went 3-1. I won with jiu-jitsu and I lost with jiu-jitsu. So and like it's one of those things. Like I'm not a fighter. Like I love competing, like doing submission grappling and jiu-jitsu tournaments. But as far as MMA is concerned, like that's just not me. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but getting punched in the head, that just freaking hurts. So I just, I did it and I'm happy I did it. I'm proud I did it. I don't need to do it ever again, you know? So that was a long time ago.
Maybe you did it so you did it just to challenge yourself. Not really. Were you trying to prove anything? Like, were you like trying to prove something to yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Like, you know, my dad had passed away and like I've always been, you know, he died when I was 18. So like I still felt like I had a lot to prove. I don't quite feel that as much now, but like that was for sure a big driver, like going out, because he was a stud and like just a stud athlete. For very rural small town Kansas back in the 70s and 80s, he was a stud, but I held him on a pedestal, you know, and I just wanted to, I don't know, like to do something.
Sure.
And, you know, now I have a son who will be 3, and I've got some pictures that like of my old fights and of me when I was like in like a badass, and someday I'll show him, you know, and I won my first 3 fights with like triangle, then rear naked, and then triangle, and then I lost by Kimura. This dude beat it. Like I didn't know he was on his back. I was inside his guard, and I thought I was just going to ground and pound him, and he beat the piss out of me from his back. This tall, lanky dude, just winging punches, and I hadn't trained for that.
And, that's a weird thing to train for.
Yeah. Like it, out of all the things that could have happened, that's something that never crossed my mind training up for it. So I tried to pass his guard and flared an elbow, and he caught the Kimura, and that was it. And then after that, I fought those 4 times in 3 months. So I went at it hard, and then that was enough. Like I didn't need to do it again. So, Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was never. I fought several times too, and you know, I I had fun with it, but
Yep.
you know, I enjoyed the training of it, and I didn't even mind getting punched in the face. I hated leg kicks.
Yes.
Those hurt, man,
Yep.
because like you feel them. They like it doesn't like you get whacked with them. Ooh. And
Yep.
then but I could deal with it, but I didn't like the atmosphere of fighting like I liked the atmosphere of grappling. There's turd burgers and grappling for sure.
Yeah.
But the numbers fewer than MMA. Like MMA, like I mean, I don't know what it's like in your scene or whatever, but like it was you'd get these guys and it's this constant like I don't know what it is like this machismo, this bravado, like trying to make themselves like look tough and whatever. You know, I went to my first MMA or my first pro fight, and you know, I'm there because I'm like, I'm a professional now. We get paid to do this for money. This is pretty neat. Like, you know, so I'm going to be a professional about it. Like, go up to the guy. I'm like, extend my hand to shake his hand. Is that the way? And he just like puffed his chest up and nodded at me. And like, oh, okay, cool. Well, then I guess I'll see you tomorrow. You know, and me thinking about losing to that guy, I'm like, I can't lose to that guy. Like, he's an awful turd burger. Like, I can't lose. I have to beat him. You know, and I didn't like going in there and being able, like, having to worry about like, which I guess maybe is part of my own ego, but like I didn't want to lose to someone I didn't find to be like a respectful fighter. Like there was one guy I fought named Chris. Great dude, respectful guy, very skilled, and like I never thought about that once. I was like, win-win, whatever. But like the rest of the guys that I fought were that they were, you know, dudes. Like I mean, there was one guy out there screaming in the crowd and stuff. Like, were you there for that one? The dude that was screaming, "This is Sparta." Remember that guy?
I don't know if I remember that.
Oh God, man, he was a mess. He was just screaming like I remember he was coming out at the fight. He's like, "Are you not entertained?" Like, look at all the people. And
I remember that.
I can't lose to this guy, you know. But I like the atmosphere of grappling and jiu-jitsu.
Dude, before I trained with Chewy, I actually saw him fight a couple of times.
Yeah,
and scary dude. Like he was a scary dude. I remember like there's one time it was like at a casino or something.
That was the first fight. That's my first pro.
He ran across the cage, like dumped this dude and just beat. I mean, it was what, a minute, 2 minutes?
No, it was a lot. So I hit him with a couple jabs.
I don't know. You killed the guy.
I thought a couple jabs and leg kicks, and I took him
killed
down.
the guy.
But like I remember being angry in that fight. Like I remember I was on top of him because he wouldn't shake my hand. I remember like telling him to shake my hand now, and I'm like punching him.
He Khabib'd him.
And my but my coach was like, he's like, Chewy, like just relax, just breathe, you know. Yeah. But I'm like, you know,
dude, it was
angry.
Wild. But yeah, and then I remember walking next to Chewy. I was just walking around, nice dude, you know, and I was like, that guy just almost murdered some dude. Yeah. But it was it's just I think that I never fought, and like for me, like watching that, like how people maybe act, there's more on the line. I mean, there's more
for sure
seriousness of getting injured. I mean, you get injured pretty badly. I mean, people have even died from, you know, fights from trauma, and you know, you can hurt yourself. I mean, you can get concussions and break shit. And so I think there's a lot more. I think you have to go to, maybe some people have to go to like a darker place to like get some kind of, you know, motivation or mental angle on you.
Maybe,
you know? Who knows?
So what's the jiu-jitsu scene like out where you're at?
So
you're in a pretty rural area,
right?
Where
I'm at, I am it, man.
I'm the guy.
Yeah, I am the guy. Like it's crazy. Like there's literally nobody. Like it's a 4-hour drive to get to Combative Sports Center and all my old training. Well, they're still my training partners, all my peers, you know. And then there's some good gyms in Wichita, Kansas, some really good gyms. But that's an hour and 45 minutes. And when I first moved home, when I first got here, I was just like, well, that part of my life is done, you know, like, and I wasn't okay with it, but like, I didn't know what else to do. And then I started drinking too much and going down the same path I was before. Like that I had started years ago. So it's like, oh shit, I better get some mats. Like I need another outlet. And I opened a little gym, and we've been going ever since. But it's, you know, I just got my black belt a couple of months ago, and yeah, dude, I just try to teach very like simple, basic jiu-jitsu that will save your ass. Like we don't get to compete enough to where I'm really like hammering on all the different kind of guards and submissions that like you see at different competitions now. It's mainly just like I want my guys to go and be able to protect themselves and their families. And then when we do compete, like it's just with basic jiu-jitsu, you know, there's nothing too fancy with it. And they do fine. I do fine when I compete. I haven't been able to compete in years because it seems like every time there's a tournament, the Army always has me. But it just kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I've got 4 guys and one 16-year-old girl that's been with me like since I got started in like the summer of 2017. She's been with me ever since, and like she's a beast. She's a killer. It's awesome. And then the rest of us are all pretty much all dads in our early to mid 30s, and we're just living life, man. So it's good.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic with that. Like you think about all the parents that train.
Mm-hmm.
I always like think about this. I don't know, you know, like I don't remember parents back when I was younger doing stuff like nothing like this. It wasn't available anyway. But
yeah,
you know, I sometimes I come into the gym and I just like sort of cock my head to the side and stare, and I'm like, that's someone's mom rolling with someone's dad, and that's someone's, you know, this, that, whatever. And you know, that's someone's kid. That's a teenager. You know, it's just a big meshing of different people and different age groups and stuff like that. I think it's super neat. I think it's very interesting to see that dynamic play in a world that can too often become very isolated.
It's changed so much. Like just the fact that like, you know, when I first got started, there were no women that trained, like hardly at all. Where I was
very few,
you know, and like you just didn't see it,
mm-hmm.
and it's and like no kids, no nothing. And now it's so much more family friendly, and like part of me misses that hardcore like aspect of it, to where you basically had to prove yourself like them every day, and now it's not like that, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, it's just different. So I don't know.
What's it like being a coach?
You know, to be honest, like I didn't take it seriously enough until like I got my black belt, and then I was like, oh shit. And I completely reevaluated and like dove in and like I did good before, but now I'm paying a lot more attention to my guys. Before, I feel like I was possibly a little selfish, because I initially opened this place for me, for my own sanity, and I was holding on to some stuff. And now I'm just trying, everything I learned, I'm trying to give away, you know, and pass on. Whereas before, I don't know if I was like that. I think I'd like held on to some little tips and tricks and stuff that I had, because I was like, I wanted my guys to get good, but I didn't know like how good, you know. And now like, oh, it doesn't matter, you know. And but I love it. Like it's good. It's good for me to do that. And like, I don't know, I'm more of a hobbyist now, and I hate saying that, but it's true. You know, like I still consider myself like the 25-year-old badass that I was, but I'm not that anymore.
Yeah.
It's still a shock to the system, because a lot of the guys that I came up with, they're still getting after it 5 days a week. And I just can't, you know, like it's just not where I'm at in life anymore. And yeah, but it's good. Like, yeah, it's just,
there's such a strange thing about that. Like when someone said, like, you know, people feel like you say you're a hobbyist, and you almost feel like you're using a dirty word.
Yeah.
You know, as if to imply you're lazy or something like that. You're like, no, dude, I got stuff going on elsewhere. I can't dedicate my life to rolling around with people, you know.
No.
You know, it's very interesting because like I've listened to people, you know, and again, depending on where you're at, different amounts of training is going to be correct. You know, like for instance, if you're training 7 days a week, but your life's in shambles,
Yeah.
maybe you should take a few days off to get that stuff together, right? Like, you know, it's like it's not really serving you. But a lot of times you'll hear people and they'll say like, you know, I only train like, you know, 2 days a week or something. Like, they'll kind of like say it very like almost embarrassed. I'm like, that's fine. Like, you know, it's cool. Like, not everybody needs to live this thing. Like, for some people, we're adding a little bit more to you, you know, it's something to, you know, enhance your life, not necessarily take it over. You know, or I've seen people where they've gone to gyms where if they're not training X amount of days a week, the coach like basically just like, you're lazy. You're like, it's like you're not lazy. It's like you might have a business going on, you might have family, you might whatever. It's I think it's interesting. So if anybody's listening to this, or well, people are listening to it, but if anybody listening to this is in that hobbyist thing, like you don't have to like hide it away and be ashamed of it. It's fine.
Pake, dude. So tell us real quick, where can people order some of your maces? What's the website, the Instagram, and if they want to get a hold of you to kind of see what you're up to, and maybe even visit your gym if they're for some reason in rural Kansas, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
So my website is become-stronger.com, and my Instagram is @become_stronger_, because I'm not rich enough to get @become stronger yet. But I do most of my communication is through Instagram. It seems like people send me a lot of messages through there. My website as well, and a little bit on Facebook. But you can see what I've got available on my website. And then like I love working with customers one-on-one. Like if you just want to go there and order a mace, great. But if you want to like something a little customized, a quote, engraving, like if you want like a Spartan style hammer or skull.
What kind of stuff do you do exactly? Because I know that you do the maces, but then obviously you're a guy who, as we talked about earlier in the podcast, you're someone that like finds a certain level of joy of taking hunks of iron and forming them into things. So you know, besides the maces, like what kind of things do you offer?
So I make like custom hammers. Like I've made a bunch of like Mjolnir's, Thor's hammers.
I want one of those.
They're all loadable, and they're just a beast. Most of them come out like 25 pounds empty, and they're a handful. They're like 25 pounds empty and 2 feet long, like with all the weight on the hammerhead end. So I make those. I've got like a Spartan style mace that I make with the lambda that I kind of forge onto it. I'm working on a couple of I make like maces with like the skulls on them, something similar to like this that I'll weld onto them. I'm gonna build a Witch King mace. I'm kind of like a Lord of the Rings geek, and I'm gonna make one forever. So like this afternoon, I'm gonna go back to the shop and crack open a beer, and I'm gonna start cutting it out and like designing it. So yeah, I love that part of it, like the artistry, of customers allowing me to like, this is what I want, get after it. And then if people don't like it, like if customers don't like it, they tell me and we figure it out. But I rarely ever have that happen.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Man, that's awesome, dude. I appreciate it. And then also we're going to offer like people that are like that listen to the podcast, they can get 10% off. They use the code Jiu-Jitsu. So if they go order something custom or what have you, if they just put the code in Jiu-Jitsu, they'll get 10% off their purchase.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
That's awesome. Appreciate you doing that, man.
Yeah.
Hopefully get some support from the jiu-jitsu community.
Sure.
I always, we always love like the, working with or like supporting like people that in jiu-jitsu that do other things that are really interesting, really cool. So,
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. And it's something I like, to me, it's like handmade things are kind of, they're a little bit rare nowadays, right? Everything's like, so just seeing something that's like you can see the effort and see like the skill and the artistry, and they're all unique, right? Like as you make them all handmade, everything's a little bit different. It's got some variation to it, which is neat.
Yep. Yeah, I like making them just raw and real. There's nothing fancy about them. They're just a hunk of iron, hunk of steel that we turn into something, and yeah, it's the style I like. So it's what I do.
Awesome, brother. Well, man, appreciate you joining us.
Yeah.
You got anything, brother?
That's it, man. Appreciate you being on, bro. And it's good chatting with you. It's,
You too.
it's fun to hear about, you know, I always find like the stuff that probably people think is just kind of like whatever, like, you know, the jobs like a blacksmith and a wildland firefighter. Those are super cool. So it was fun chatting with you, and
this is
hope
awesome.
everything goes well. Yeah,
I've
appreciate
been
it.
watching your videos for years, man. So this is awesome to talk to you.
Man, that's such a funny thing. I've come to that realization in the last like few months. I like when we were. I remember there was a guy who came and visited. He was a brown belt, and he was like, and he's a black belt. I don't know, was he brown? No, he's a black belt now. And he said, "Oh man, I've been watching you since I was a blue belt."
Yep.
And I'm like, have I been doing it that long? Oh shit!
How long you been doing it?
You just forget. You know what I mean? Like you forget. So I started back in 2015 in summer. So about 6 years.
When we went to Charlotte, that was
2016.
Yeah, and that
people
were like walking up to you then.
Yeah, that was about a year in. But I'm talking about like, and that was happening, and that was kind of neat because it was not new. But now it's getting to the point where like people are becoming black belts, and they've been watching me since they were like a blue belt.
Yeah,
you know, like you're like, whoa, this is crazy. Like you've been watching me since you were going through all the steps, like
all the progressions.
It's super cool. You know, it's very neat. But I guess you forget. You know, so just like anything else.
Your giggler sweep like changed my game, man. Like I love that thing.
Well, it's not mine.
Yeah,
I learned it, but I love the damn sweep. It's a good sweep.
Yep. Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
You know who doesn't like that sweep? The person that's getting gigglered.
Yeah. No,
like, son of a bitch.
Hence why it's called the giggler.
It's annoying.
Again.
You usually chuckle afterwards, don't you?
Yeah. That's right.
Well, or the person that gets hit with it, they're going, oh shit! Like as you're going over,
you know it's happening.
Because it's like you feel the floor under you move, and you're like, oh man! It's like have you ever like been walking down the stairs, you miss the stair, and you know you're about to fall, and you're like, oh, this is gonna.
Here it comes. Yep.
It's such a. I hate that sweep. I hate it because it gets hit on me all the time. Not all the time, but you've hit it on me. I'm like, and you know, it's kind of one of those. It's not necessarily a fast sweep. Like you're kind of like you're like in that no man's land. You're kind of floating. Like it's happening.
Yep. Here we go.
Awesome, brother. Man, great talking to you, Pake. Take care, man.
You too.
All right, take care, brother. Yep. All right, guys. So that is the podcast. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed that one. I found that again. I found it interesting the whole Wildland Firefighter thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's super interesting.
He's like a man's man. He's like, I'm in the military. I do firefighting.
And I'm a blacksmith.
I'm a blacksmith.
And I work with metal. It's cool.
It's awesome, right?
I dig it.
Yeah, it's neat. That's a cool thing. Like people do shit with their hands, like really like make something with your hands. It gets character. So it's neat to me.
I think also people that do things where there's a creative element to it, where you're creating something. I think that because it requires skill, there's so many parallels to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You know, like you just listening to anyone talk about when you're in like a creative process. Even like I went and saw the movie Dune.
Yeah.
Last week I was listening to
the movie.
Yeah, I love the movie. I thought if you guys haven't seen it, go see it in theaters while it's still out. It's definitely a good theater movie. And if you haven't read the book or listened to the book, go do it. You can actually find the book for free on YouTube. If you just want to listen to it, like you can get it it's on there. They've got the whole audio book. It's broken into chunks, or Audible has the same version available. But it's a good book. And then but I was listening to the director, Denis Villeneuve or whatever. And so he was talking about how when he was younger, he wanted to like win all the awards, and he would make movies trying to win awards.
Oh, wow.
And then now he said all of his best movies that everybody knows him for, he made because he was just trying to make a good movie that he would have enjoyed, you know? And it's so interesting to me because there's so much like, so I related to that because with jiu-jitsu, when I was competing for awards and medals, when I competed because I just wanted to go do the best techniques that I could, it was like, that was the magic, you know? And I was like, so I love listening to creative types, even from different, you know, outlets and different forms of creativity and craft, talk about how they get into their thing. Cause I think there's so many parallels and so many crossovers that are exactly the same, no matter what kind of craft you're in. But, anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed that podcast. And thank you guys for being there with us. Again, as always, thanks to our sponsors, Charlotte's Web, charlottesweb.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu. Save 15% on your order on any CBD products that you get from there. Again, I encourage people to try it out. Everybody's bodies are a little bit different. So if you're on the fence with it, go pick up a probably I would recommend probably a tincture that they have. They're pretty straightforward and cost effective. And you can get a tincture, try it out for a month and see what it does for you. You may notice a world of difference. You may not. It's different. But if you're like people like me and Eugene, like we've been big believers in CBD for
seasoned veterans.
Well, seasoned veterans. We became believers after we used it. Because I remember back in the day hearing about Charles Webb on Joe Rogan and being like, psh, whatever. It sounds like some snake oil. And then I used it and I was like, oh, it's actually pretty damn good. So again, I recommend people to try it before you dismiss it. Also, thanks to Matt at Epic Roll, rollbjj.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu. Jump on there, save yourself some 15% on whatever you order, whether that's Jiu-Jitsu gear, apparel, any of the cool stuff that he has. Again, I'm a big fan of his designs. So if you're in the market for a new gi, rash guard, shorts, or just some Jiu-Jitsu gear to wear around, check out his website, epicrollbjj.com. And thanks to Pake at become-stronger.com. Again, you can save 10% on the order by going to the website, and whatever you order, you can use the promo code Jiu-Jitsu and save 10%. And again, he does custom work. So if you're interested in getting something custom made, whether that's a mace with some crazy design on it or something else related to the metal, ask him. We're going to try to get him to make something special for us. We'll see if we can make that happen. And if we do, we'll let you know. But again, you can contact him on his website or on his Instagram, as he listed earlier. And again, guys, if you want to join the Chew Crew email list, where I will send you 2 free ebooks. One is on developing a jiu-jitsu game plan, where I'll show you my game plan and then line it out so this way you can make your own. Or if you want to get the ebook where I go into drilling strategies, whether you are a coach, whether you're a student, whether you have open mat time where you can do reps, or you have no open mat time and you're strapped to the gills to, get to the gym anyway, I'll give you some strategies that it'll help you implement techniques, again, because that's what we're all trying to do. We're all trying to take techniques and be able to use them against people, whether it's a competition or just a roll in the gym. And so I'll give you strategies to make that happen. And they're lined out from varying levels of intensity. So you can get that by going to jujitsu.net/join, JOIN. You can join the Chew Crew email list, and so you'll get those free ebooks, and then you'll get a daily email from the Chewster himself. That's me. And in case you didn't know,
surprise.
I know, right? And guys, if you want to support the podcast and get access to several years worth of content from the podcast that's never been released, you can go to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast and get access there. And I guess with that said, I think that's it.
We did it.
Appreciate you guys for joining us this week. And as always, we'll talk to you next time.